Bonjour, bonsoir tout le monde. Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Emeline Félix. I work for the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, of which OCP is a member, next to 250 other companies. What we do is we try to support companies on their journey towards sustainability. And definitely one of the big journeys, the big pathways towards sustainability for food and agriculture is what's called regenerative agriculture. Now, there is not one definition of regenerative agriculture. There is a multi-stakeholder process that is farmer-centric, and that is aiming to agree on what are the key outcomes of regenerative agriculture. And what they're leaning towards is 5 outcomes that are central to regenerative agriculture. And one of them is soil health, because as Robin was saying before, it's just so critical to everything else. So soil health, greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity, water, and last but not least, farmer livelihoods. We need to put back farmers at the center, who are, by the way, the first customers of OCP. And I'm sure we're going to hear a bit more about that.
Fantastic. And Rashid, if you'd like to take that microphone, we'll be sharing the microphones tonight. But aligned with this is the work of the Global Soil Partnership, which has existed for more than a decade. Rashid is here. Rashid Musadek is the Senior Scientist on Soil and Sustainable Intensification at Akarta INRA and Chair of the Global Soil Partnership. We're really thrilled to have you here. And how do you feel about the soil agenda getting mentioned here at the COP more?
Thank you, Chair. I think you appointed really that in the previous COP, the soil wasn't recognized as, can I say, one of the solution if it's well managed for this climate change. And fortunately, we since 2011, we launched this global soil partnership with FAO, with the commitment of each country, which give us more, can I say, strength in this collaboration, international collaboration, because each country appointed what we call it focal point that he become when we discuss in this global soil partnership assembly, and we put each year a plan of action. And since the decade, we understand that this non-renewable resources, not well recognized as if you can compare it to water. Water, everyone talk about water, and we know that. But soil, it was like, can I say, a silent natural resources. But the problem is when you lost it, is irreversible. That's why we make this coalition, this partnership, where can I say, more than 100 scientists meet each year, at least twice time by year, to discuss and to propose plan. One of the outcomes that we did within this, can I say, global soil partnership, that we set like 5 pillars that we need to develop, to work on, if we want that this kind of soil resources be recognized and also to be put in the agenda of the UN conventions. And one of the, can I say, the 5 pillars, the first one was the awareness, because it was not well understood before. And we put a lot of, can I say, actions for awareness. One of them is the recognizing of the Soil World Day on the 5th of December. It's one of the best outcomes of this global soil partnership. The second is investment, because we recognize that there is not enough fund for having soil sustainable management, and also give subsidies to farmers who try to be, can I say, climate smart when they make effort to adopt some sustainable management. The third is research. We still need a lot of research, because for example, last conference on biodiversity, it was appointed that until now, we just know 3% of the soil biodiversity, which is making very far the effort that we have to do. The third is the data, because we understand that if we want to manage something, we need to measure this. action. That's why we put a lot of highlighted in the need of soil data accurate, not all, because unfortunately, as I said in several meetings, the data is like, can I say, it's not like wine, it's like fish. If it's old, you lost it. That's why we need to use some new technology, new approach, and to get some accurate data for soil fertility, soil management, and also other elements. And the last one, it was mainly on making some harmonizing on the method that we use to collect this information. And really, since we start, it was like 10 years, but believe me, it's like we are finally having some good result that we share with the community, and now they are understanding the importance of carbon sequestration, for example, and also any technology that can help to sequester this carbon, because this is the one, the soil is, can I say, the second after the ocean resources that can sequester this carbon from the atmosphere, and to make life more easy and to reduce the climate change impact.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rashid. Let's turn next to Chris Mitchell, who is the managing director and partner at BCG in one of my favorite cities, in Nairobi. Chris, Rashid was talking about the importance of soils writ large, and he was also relaying how that intersects with farmers. You've been doing some work specifically on smallholders and how they can get access to a soil system that's working better for them.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. It does all start with farmer centricity. And for smallholder farmers, whatever the production system, whether it's the Green Revolution production system or regenerative or agroecology, for smallholder farmers, it has to be higher yielding, because often they're eating what they're growing, or they're selling it to the market. And so we really, as I was saying in the prep here, you can do a very simple formula. How much land do you have? What are you growing? What is your volume? And what is the price? And I think we would all want smallholder farmers to get out of poverty, but for that to be true, they have to be able to produce more. And the soil is absolutely critical to that. I think that in order for smallholder farmers, though, to become part of this regenerative movement, there are some public goods that need to be built. We don't yet have sufficient soil mapping. We don't have sufficient extension. And so what's happening is that farmers may or may not be using soil amendments, but they're probably not understanding that the combination of compost, manure, some synthetic fertilizer, what is that actually happening to the soil, and what will be the impact on their crops? So I think a combination of better soil mapping, better extension, and then finally, what's quite exciting, and some of the panelists here are working on this, is that they are able to capture the value of the carbon that they're storing. I think that being able to use this as a productive subsidy for the inputs that they use would go a long way towards getting smallholder farmers to move in this direction.
Fantastic, Chris. And it's so wonderful to hear people talking about a farmer-centric approach. You and Emmeline have touched on that. When we take that theme down the road here on the panel, Naful Rudes is the head of the business unit of Al Mutmir at UM6P. Naful, first of all, tell us a little bit about UM6P, and then how are you taking some of these practical extension issues right to the farm level?
Thank you. Al-Mutmir is Arabic. It's an Arabic word, and it means fruitful in English. Al-Mutmir was launched in 2018 by OCP to connect directly to the farmer. And since 2022, Al-Mutmir is hosted by UM6P, University Mohammed VI Polytechnic, Ben Guerir, in Morocco. And we have a mission now to connect the apply research to the field, to the ground, and we have a commitment for a sustainable agriculture. And naturally, this commitment, the first one is soil health. And through our team, around 80 young agronomists on the field. They are based in 40 areas in Morocco. They are working closely to the farmers, and and we are trying to support directly the basics daily with the farmers, and we try to support them on many tracks. And we began with the knowledge of what the soil contain. This is very important. And till now, we achieve more than 100,000 soil analysis that we provide for our farmers through our mobile laboratories and also UM6P laboratories. And we provide them a customized solution, even customized fertilizer, customized extension service also, and through many action, through demonstration plots, through training, and also through new best practices like conservation agriculture, no-till program, etc. So we try to work with them closely, and the key of this action is to choose the farmer leaders to promote this aspect with their neighborhood, and to try to duplicate what we are doing with them, because our aim at the end of the day is to make this farmer have their autonomy to choose these best practices and to implement it in the field.
Fantastic. I was actually in Nairobi at the African Conference on Agricultural Technologies and went into an OCP mobile soil lab, a great example of you taking this right to the farm or the community level. To put a question back to you, you've touched on capacity and technology building. How do you think we need to invest to get that change really in our soils?
Yes, the investment now is training. For us, is training, and to exchange and to listen to our farmer, to know what they want, and to try to give them the rights to back to the research, because it is very important, and to bring the right solution, to bring it at the right time, at the right moment, and the right place. And the investment, we think that we have to invest in education of the young leader, women and farmers, through creation of centers. For example, in UM6P, we are launching a new center for training of new young leader, and these young leaders can promote also all the best practices on the field. For example, in Morocco, we have a plan, a national plan for conservation agriculture to reach 1 million hectare of no-till. And this program, we need all together this task force to implement this project. So education is very important to implement to have this commitment through this young leader.
Well, extraordinary that OCP and UM6P have made that commitment to education. Chris, when you're thinking about that smallholder element, we're talking about education and knowledge. What are some of the best practices you've seen in programs to actually get to that farm level?
I think the key there is the farmer aggregation organizations. And many of us know who they are, but the likes of One Acre Fund, Apollo, Babangona, these are entities which are really trying to surround the farmer with everything they need. And I think that although we're rightly focused on soil, a full regenerative production system includes all the things that you started with, Emeline, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of water, in terms of understanding the greenhouse gas contribution. So those farmer aggregation organizations are critical for surrounding the farmer with the inputs and with the training that's required. And increasingly, they're moving into markets. Because I think at the end of the day, farmers to adopt this system, a regeneratively grown cob of maize has to sell at a higher price than one that's conventionally grown. Otherwise, there really isn't the incentive for farmers to adopt these practices. And that's actually something that we at BCG are trying to do now, which is to orchestrate offtake agreements with processors, farmer aggregation organizations, and finance providers, who can then make sure that this whole value chain is able to move in a certain direction. And we're not doing this for the whole country. We're talking about 2 or 3 counties at the Kenyan level to get down to the ground realities and the specifics that are needed. I think if you do it that way, at least to start, you have some very positive proof points. And as we all know, when farmers are promoters of something, they tend to talk. And so they will be their own marketing force to get the adoption of these inputs and practices to be more widely accepted.
Well, I think that's a great play off of what we just heard from Naful about the role of leaders. But part of the reward for those leaders is to actually see profitable and successful farms. If you'll forgive me, Rashid, I'd like to just pop over here to Emmeline to talk a little bit about how you see the pull through for regenerative products that reward those farmers. And then I'll come right back to you, Rashid.
Thank you. This was not a question we had agreed. No, it's an excellent question. I think that's a little bit the elephant in the room today. Is we know, well, depending on the starting point of the farmers, adopting better practices sometimes can be rewarding quite quickly, but many times there is a bit of a dip. There is a transition time towards thereafter getting actually higher yields and actually much more resilience in the face of climate change that is accelerating. And let's not forget that. So it's not like we really have the choice. We have to move there. But it does take some investment. And at the moment, it's very difficult to find anyone who wants to chime in, right? Consumers don't want to pay more or cannot afford to pay more. The retailers don't want to sell at higher prices. The processors are keeping the prices down as well. The traders also don't want to go higher. And the farmers obviously often cannot do it. I remember we're talking with the representative from Eastern African farmers. I was mind blown when she said that the loans often for smallholders are 25%. It's impossible. And so, to the point that Chris was making, the reason why we launched the Regenerative Landscapes Action Agenda is that we know that there is a lot of demand, that we need to go in that path, that there is a lot of momentum, but we need to generate the finance, the transition finance. There are 2 ways to look at it. There is the finance, so basically some money to get into it, and or de-risking, right? And so for that, we need the right players in the room. We need investors. We need insurance. And that's really the one thing that we need to tackle.
Well, for a question you weren't expecting, you handled that perfectly. I think when we're talking about that investment, Rashid raised the question of how we invest in soil mapping. How do we understand how we're doing, benchmark, and then continue to map the progress that we need as part of the regenerative agriculture and soil health agenda and the larger regenerative landscapes agenda? How are we getting some investment? How much more investment do we need?
Good question. I'm soil scientist by training, but I moved from this, as you introduced me, as soil and cropping system specialist, because I understand that it's not only a matter to focus on soil, because soil by sea is not, can I say, you can sell it like this. But at least if you explain to some finance, some donors, that if they invest on soil management, they are also getting back some, can I say, return, and they can also be recognized as sustainable, and also sometimes civil societies and citizen in, can I say, societies in collaborating in this effort to, can I say, to be more adapted to climate change. And one example is OCP. I remember some years before when we present them the concept note of doing soil fertility mapping in Morocco. It was 10 years before, and more than 10 years before. And we explained that if we do the soil fertility mapping, we will bring, how can I say, the only needed amount of fertilizer, not more, not less, And this is something that is needed if you want to help those farmers to be more resilient. And also for industrial, they will know which kind of formula they have to sell for which soil type and so on. So it's not fit to all. And by this, we bring also some partnership, country, as I said, public, private. This is very important that we put all this collaboration around soil mapping fertility, because no one wants to invest in this kind of study if you don't put it linked to soil fertility. Now we are trying to put it, for example, with the GSP, Global Soil Partnership. We launched an initiative we call it REC Soil, recarbonizing soil. And we say that if we do sustainable management, but fitting for several type of soil, because sometimes some soil don't need to be, can I say, used for some, can I say, intensive crop, and others should be maybe be rehabilitated. And this kind of suitability studies, suitability maps are also needed. And soil is one of the key parameters to develop the suitability maps that can be after be like financing the and also insurance, because now the insurance are okay. If I want to invest, am I sure that this area will be regenerating enough resources? So this connection between public and private, while you presenting what you are doing in terms of investment and also in terms of what you can get as economy, is very important. And that's the only way how we can get some support from some industrial like OCP. And this technology, for example, soil fertility mapping, now we promote it for several countries in Africa and all otherwise. That's why I think as our mission as a researcher is to look to this kind of collaboration and make, can I say, the message easily understandable for each partners, and not to make it, the same and say soil health without putting the link with the finance, with environment, and also well-being.
Well, and if you think about soils as an asset, right? I mean, it's part of the land that a farmer might own, or an asset that, frankly, we have globally, and its ability to sequester carbon, and its ability to be healthy and not degraded, right? It's like a bank account. So if you are soil fertility mapping, you're actually understanding what your balance is in your bank account. So as we think about that, Chris, and contemplate then exactly what you said earlier about getting a whole suite of tools and a whole value chain built out around the farmers. I see it in some of the work I do in Women in Agriculture on the gender lens, that we get an intervention for women's leadership training, but then we don't take that woman and make sure she has land tenure, or we give her land tenure and we don't make sure that she gets seed and fertilizer to grow a crop, or we don't assure that there's a market. It sounds like you were really talking about making sure there's that whole circle. How do you find enough partners to do that around a farmer? Because there's so many actors involved.
Yeah, you've hit on a fundamental paradox, which is the more farmer-centric you are, which is that you take into consideration everything that they grow, which, as you know, in many African contexts could be livestock, poultry, high-value horticulture, and grains. The more complicated it is, the harder it is to scale any set of interventions, because so many different input companies are required and so many different off-takers. We very much believe in a demand-led approach. So we start with the off-taker, and then we build the variety of inputs around that farmer aggregation organization. But I think the other key thing here is to de-average, because even when it comes to soil nutrients, nitrogen is relatively available in manure, particularly in poultry manure. That is not true for a nutrient that's very important in this pavilion, which is phosphorus. Phosphorus is not available through human, animal, or plant compost in the same way as other nutrients. So I think we really need to de-average. And then exactly what you were saying, Robin, is critical. We always think about farmer interventions for one season, particularly for farmers that are replanting every year. But what's been interesting is that as soon as you start doing interventions around agroforestry, for example, you can start, as you say, talking about a bank account and talking about soil like trees. We have to think about this over
Exactly.
multiple seasons. And there isn't a huge amount of research, but I'm hoping to my left you can correct me. But what's exciting about the regenerative production system is that as we look over multiple years, we actually find that the amount of soil amendments required decreases over time as the soil biome becomes more diverse. And the nutrient content of the foods that are able to be grown changes. And of course, this makes sense. Nutrients in, nutrients out. That's the nutrient loop. But I think that it's so important to have these conversations with farmers. And I'll just end by saying that's complicated. You know, we always think about, oh, how do we get to a franchise model or something very simple just to sort of roll out like a factory to farmers? You can't. It's a consultative sale. And so really spending time with farmers to understand their biases and their past experiences is critical if we want them to actually adopt even more complicated inputs and techniques.
I love the respect that that shows for the farmer as an actor with their own agency and will in this discussion, which sometimes gets lost in the conversation. Naful, if we think about this this issue that Chris was raising about the complexity, it seems to me we're almost talking more or less about something like the 4R systems, where we're talking about right rate, right time, right place, right needs, and the range of different nutrients that you need, because it's just like we can't only have bread, we actually do need to have vegetables and protein and all these wonderful things in our diet. It's true for our soils. How do we get to focusing a little on that 4R model that allows farmers to really find the right thing for their farms, even when they're in a small scale?
Yeah, the most important thing for our farmers, Moroccan one and worldwide, they are the same. We work with African farmers, and we have the same reflex, as I said. And for the farmers, we have one sentence: seeing is believing. And this is how we work. We work through our extension team close to the farmer, and we try to implement through demonstration plots and also another plot which the farmer is doing himself, his own method. And we bring to them a scientific protocol to implement it. So through soil testing, then we can have the balance, the soil balance, and we can provide the right formula, and to provide it at the right time, in the right place, at the right moment, and he can see with this scientific approach and implementation on the field, the impact of this action on the field and on the yield. And just some numbers, we can, through this model, we can reach more than 25 to 30% more of yield. And if we go through the nutrition component, I think we will have more with this production. And this is the most important thing. And as I said, for the first question, this model, we should to upscale it. For example, this year, through our action, we try to upscale more demonstration plots this year in Morocco to see the impact of larger area of implementation of technical aspect on the field. So this is the best way for our farmers to see the impact of the science approach and the 4R system and the quality of the product.
Well, and if we're thinking about how to feed the crops and the soils, that also actually adds up to how we feed ourselves in terms of nutrition. Emmeline, do you want to talk a little bit about how regenerative landscapes lead to good nutritive outcomes for humans as well as the planet?
Thank you. That was also not discussed before. No, I'm joking. No, that's a really important subject. The science is emerging on this, to be honest. There is a group that we are partners with called the Nutrient Density Alliance that is bringing evidence to the fact that there is a link between the healthiness of the soil and the healthiness, the nutritiousness of the crops. This is being built up. It makes a lot of sense. But the more we're going to be able to show that, the more we will be able to demonstrate the win-win of changing our practices, of course. Because ultimately, the people, the consumers, are all driven by doing good, but often they're more driven by doing good to their health than to the planet. So if you can show that by buying crops that come from regenerative practices, you're doing good to yourself as well as to the planet, then you really hit what is needed.
And I'm just going to do a quick follow-up because you talked at the very beginning about the notion that this needs to be a just transition, that it needs to include social and economic powers as well as environmental powers. And we've touched on that a little bit in, the pull-through in the market. But how do you think we really make regenerative and just transition add up together?
Yes. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, when we talk about putting the farmer at the center, you highlighted this was really a good development. This is not, as I mentioned in an earlier panel, I've been working on sustainable agriculture for 25 years. And I think we've always talked about putting the farmer at the center, but honestly, we've never really done it. Not saying OCP, obviously the companies that are really closer to the farmers have, but overall in the food value chain, it's very much been a top down. It's been driven by retailers and manufacturers saying we need to go towards something sustainable. But unless we really find a way to make it beneficial to the farmer, we're not going to go anywhere. More generally speaking, in WBCSD, we believe that we're never going to get to our targets on greenhouse gas emissions and on nature unless we really tackle inequality. We've seen a number of efforts, the yellow vest or gilets jaunes in France, whenever there was a movement or a government trying to make something that aimed at climate, if they were not taking into account inequality, then it was doomed to fail. So really, this is super important, is how do we really link it? And I think on the subject, we know that with climate change accelerating, if we want to be able to feed everyone, and the numbers are that today we already have 2 billion people that don't have access every day to nutritious food, but we also expect by 2050, there's going to be 1.7 billion more, mostly in Africa. So, unless we find a way to become more resilient, to restore the degraded soils, and to cultivate in a way that produces more, but with respect to nature, we're not going to get there. So really putting the farmers and equity at the center of the equation is the only way that we're gonna get there. And then, of course, getting the finance, as we mentioned before.
I'd like to echo that. There's this shocking statistic that 80% of the people who live in multidimensional poverty, which means that they're living below $1.25 a day, they're not getting access to food, they're not getting access to schools, they're not getting access to medical care and education. 80% are in rural areas. This question of justice at the front line lies in rural areas in our agri-food systems in that respect. On a slightly brighter note, let's talk about the fact that during this COP, December 5th was World Soils Day. So congratulations, Rashid. Thank you for getting us a World Soils Day to celebrate. And what a wonderful way to mark it, to have seen the declaration by the UAE and 150 countries to say that soil health would be part of this journey, that we see agri-food systems in the text of the declaration and a whole movement around it. What would you like to see next World Soils Day on December 5th that's going to advance this agenda?
Thank you. I think it's important that finally we get this recognizing of this 5 December as the Soil World Day. It was like, can I say, a large work with this Global Soil Partnership that we try that this natural resources should be recognized. And what is good is as we, beyond that, we what we did with the to can I say to be linked to the UN agenda, UNCD, and climate change, and also the biodiversity, because this is important. And we link the soil to SDGs. We have already done this under this Global Soil Partnership, and each SDG now we say that soil management can have, and we appointed 5 of them that are directly connected to the soil management. This is also important, and that make the link with policymakers and ministers to know that if they contribute on soil management, they are also achieving the SDGs. This is one. And second was like to make awareness for youth and education. And I'm more than glad if you look now to the Soil World Day, because we publish it with the FAO, and we put it available to everyone to because we think that soil should be like a public good. It should be something that be well understood by the new generation, and why not to make more awareness about it for in our system, because in the past, as I said, it wasn't recognized like a solution of this climate change. And now for the next, what we do is in the assembly we meet, and each member present like what is the can I say the item that you want to propose, and we make a vote. It's with like election and assembly and some democracy. But we are now looking to the can I say words in healthy soil, healthy food. This is something that we try to link, because we find that if, as you said, the COVID issues, and people are looking for zinc, and sometimes zinc is there. Is not, you don't have to go to just to eat what is already developed and under healthy soil, and you can get enough on your kind of say micro element that you need for your body. And also we prove it with science, we prove it with research, showing that if you have like healthy soil, you can serve, as you said, for your body, and for you feed your soil also, and you can also feed the human and also you can resolve the problem of the climate change. So it's linked, but this kind of, can I say, awareness, advocacy need to be, can I say, more strengthened for the future. And really, I like this panel because we are talking the same, can I say, same word, because I feel myself when I was in my early stage, soil scientist. We know I joined ICARDA, for example. Soil is, a part soil classification that we soil mapping. This resources, is it needed for other thing? And I remember when breeding scientists, they told me soil is the place when I put my foot between trial to another trial. For them, it was something very, which is not now. They're recognizing the soil, and recognizing that if we have a healthy soil, we can, as I said, answer this complex question that we have with this climate change.
Soil scientists, the new superheroes. Chris, we pivot this conversation a bit to the COP and the drumbeat between now and the coming ones, what do you think we're going to get on the question of food systems, agriculture, soils on Tuesday and beyond?
Yeah, I think we're excited to see, and I know you've been part of this process, excited to see food and nature so firmly at the center, and to be included by COP30 in the indices. That's great. The key next step is that we have both national but also regional food systems transformation plans and pipelines, because there are a lot of plans. I'm sure you all have a lot of PDFs as a result of COP. But what we need is actual investable projects, so that the money that's required can actually go and be deployed. And I think the Global Green Growth Initiative is a good example. They're trying to mobilize 10 billion between Africa and the Middle East, taking technologies and capital from GCC, where they know how to grow things when it's hot, into Africa, where we have arable land and we have labor, recognizing in the long term, intergenerationally, they hope that Africa can be a food basket for the GCC once its own nutritional needs can be met. That's a great example of how a Saudi or a Kenyan food systems transformation plan is not good enough. It would not see that kind of interaction and the need for trade. The last thing I will say, and I know our friends at OCP live this reality, is I think we in the food system have underemphasized infrastructure. We don't have in Africa the roads, the rail, the port, the logistics, the storage needed to transform our food system. We talk a lot about soil systems and seed systems, and rightly so. But if we actually have the excess production, where will we store it? How will we move it? And so I'm really also hoping that this infrastructure investment comes to the fore over the next few months. And as we go towards really COP30, I think will be a high watermark for updating all of these efforts.
I think we're a bit on the same page, because I just came from an investment seminar on the just transition and was talking about infrastructure. So obviously, we've been linked across green and blue zones. One of the key investments is in education and reaching farmers directly. We talked about how to do that at scale. Emmeline mentioned how many millions of people we need to engage. What do you think about the investments between now and the next COP and the one beyond?
I think now we have to invest in youth people, because they are the future, and we have to show them that agriculture is fancy, because now everybody is looking for digital, looking for other aspect, but agriculture, we should work on this, and to make agriculture more attractive for youth people through centers. I say that, for example, to create centers for dissemination of knowledge, and to make agriculture more accessible for our youth. This is the more important thing, in addition of what all it said for the future, for the investment that we should do for tomorrow.
Fantastic. Nothing more important than making sure we have a next generation that's actually working on that soil. Thank you for the investment that you're making in the future of youth. Why don't we come back down the panel? 30 seconds, your call to action on soils in the just transition.
So we should communicate a lot on the soil. We should work, and we should disseminate this aspect, and show that it is very important for everyone, for farmers, for everyone. So for me, as I think I learned one very good sentence: healthy soil, healthy food.
For me, I think it's something we haven't spoken about, but it's using subsidies for good. So between 700 billion, 1.4 trillion, a lot of numbers out there. But if we can use those subsidies to move towards a more nutrient efficient local loop soil system, it'll be to the benefit of both people and planet.
Fantastic. Rashid?
I think as I'm looking to this experience, I see the key, if we want to make some change on what we have now, is to develop strength, collaboration, and partnership, a public-private partnership on soil sustainable management. This is the only way if we can have some, can I say, impact on the ground, because without this kind of collaborative work, collective intelligence, working on the same objective and have the same vision, believe me, we cannot, maybe the time also is our enemy. But as I recognize, for example, case of Morocco, we have the third year of drought, and farmers are really in the bad situation in terms of these issues of climate change. The risk is high, but if we join our effort, we try to collaborate together, and believe me, we can at least make some transition while it's too late, but we still believe that it can solve the problem of this, can I say, smallholder farm and that need to be more resilient to this climate change.
Public-private partnership. Emmeline.
Thank you. Yeah, my plea is going to be around finance. So agree with subsidies, as Chris was saying. By the way, FAO estimated, I think it was a couple of years ago, that 90% of the agricultural subsidies are detrimental to health and the environment. Just saying. Secondly, we really need private finance as well. And there is this number. I seem to know so many numbers. I don't actually, just a few of them. And one of them is that only 4% of climate finance goes to agriculture. That's what we need to change. In order to maintain soil health and grow the soil health, which can deliver on so many of the outcomes we need very quickly to achieve: climate, biodiversity, water. Soil health is one of the solutions, but we need climate finance and more finance for that.
And I'd like to quote you as we come to the conclusion of this session. Emmeline, in the preparatory notes, made a reference to a symphony of solutions. And I thought that was a beautiful reference. I think we've seen a whole symphony of solutions along this panel, and we need the concrete investment, the concrete partnerships, the practical solutions, as Chris was saying, and and getting that next generation involved. And all of that will be based on this very important bank account we have for the whole planet, which are our soils. Many thanks to OCP, many thanks to the Kingdom of Morocco, and to all of you for listening. Bonsoir, bonne nuit.
And to the most amazing moderator, I have to say, really. Oh, that's amazing. It's like so natural.
Thank you very much. I'm from OCP. You host our university. Ça va? Yeah. Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. I'm Robin. Nice to meet you. Actually, all right. That was,